So, Resident Evil had a second movie. Yes, Resident Evil Apocalypse. Now, the first one ended with these similar sights that one sees with a zombie apocalypse. But in actuality, it hadn't quite happened yet. We're still in Raccoon City at the opening where we last saw Alice. And what happened was the stupid Umbrella guys went in there and opened up the hive they had just shut down to keep it contained. And, well, guess what? They all got out. But in the meantime, apparently, and very quickly, they were able to experiment on Alice, giving her superpowers. Because for some reason, we don't know yet, maybe we'll find out sometime later, that the T-cell virus bonds with her in such a way as to give her superpowers. And meanwhile, her friend, the reporter guy, whatever, the guy with his sister who died and who infiltrated Umbrella, and he got scratched by the nasty monster on the train and started to mutate as a result of that. Boy, did he. Now he's this giant lumbering meat of, meat. Totally unrecognizable except for his blue eye. Yeah. So he's there, and they call him the Nemesis Project, I suppose. And she's Project Alice, that's appropriate. So apparently all of this was set up just so they could watch them fight. Yeah, and they do. Until he remembers who he is and who she is, and ends up sacrificing himself to save her at the end. It's all very sad. But anyway, so Raccoon City's in trouble because of the outbreak, and one of the scientists, they say, hey, we need you, we got our situation here, and they're wanting him to come be a part of their team. And he says, yeah, but get my daughter. Don't worry, we're getting your daughter. And lo and behold, the vehicle his daughter's in it just happens to get into a car wreck, and they can't get her out of the city. So the city is walled off and surrounded by Umbrella Corporation troops. Yeah. And they realize that the virus is getting in through the population because there's people turning. And so they decide to seal it off, and they start shooting people at the gate, not letting them in. Meanwhile, the scientist, who is wheelchair bound, makes contact with some of the survivors in the city, and we actually get to meet one of the characters who's actually based on one of the video game characters, that being Jill Valentine. And so she shows up, and you get a demonstration of she's a badass and all that stuff. And then there's a little ragtag team of people of surviving, a news reporter and some guy who, I don't know if he was a crook or what, but he's there for the comic relief, I suppose. And an Umbrella SWAT team who gets abandoned after they tried to save a woman who ends up committing suicide because she got bitten, so it was all a waste of time. And they get abandoned, so they figure, hey, we're on the team to search for the little girl. Because you see, the scientist makes contact with them and says, hey, I can get you out, but you got to save my daughter. So they agree to do this. But they all meet up first at a church, and they're being hunted by those nasty monsters. It seems, yes, there's more of them. And there's a lot of nasty stuff that happens there too, but why go into detail? And looks like it's pretty much over for them. And and then Alice smashes in through the church window on a motorcycle. Now, how did she know? I guess you can fill in the blanks and assume that her superpowers, she sensed danger and knew she was needed, and maybe she sensed the monsters. I don't know. There's no indication of that in the film. Compared to the first one, this one is a step down. It's really over the top, cheesy and silly and stupid in a lot of ways, but I can't explain it. I watched it right on through. Again, I guess because it's Mila. But anyway, so they got to run through the Raccoon City dilapidated, falling, and all this stuff. And then she comes across Nemesis, and they fight, 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 and they fight. And demonstrating that she has superpowers and all that stuff. And eventually she realizes, oh no, I can't remember if it was his name, Matt or Max. Anyway, oh no, it's you, I can't kill him, but you must, and and all this stuff. And then he turns, and the bad guy, who she briefly remembers was one of the guys experimenting on her, and also another character played by Lane Glenn, from Game of Thrones and all that, and will be Batman in the second season of Titans. How about that? But anyway, he's the bad guy for the next movie. That's why you're seeing him here. The big monster turns on him on the SWAT team, and the umbrella villain, who's just there to be an a-hole, and he ends up shooting the poor scientist in the wheelchair to force her to fight the monster and all this stuff. And of course, what does he get? He gets eaten by zombie scientists that he kills. So, and it's always satisfying when the a-hole villain gets his just desserts, because he's pretty much responsible for a lot of this, maybe not all of it, but nevertheless, doesn't really care about anybody. And so there you go, and they make good their escape, because they decided that the outbreak is so serious that they have to nuke the city in order to stop it from spreading. And they do just that. And so our heroes must escape, and they manage to commandeer a helicopter and fly away, but not before a piece of shrapnel is heading for the young girl that they rescued and hits Alice in the chest. And so, that's it for Alice. Well, the next scene we see, there's Alice naked again, yes. Floating in a ball of water with Lane Glenn saying, "Hey, Alice, wakey, wakey," And so there's an interesting, but when you see the third film, which of course I will discuss, you get more into another experiment involving clones. So is this the same Alice? Is the real Alice dead? Well, we'll have to see, won't we? Yeah. So, she wakes up and she has her superpowers, and boy, does she. She takes out his whole team and makes good her escape, and is able to simply just think, or use telekinesis, I suppose, and make the security guys at Umbrella's brains explode, because there's one guy, he's bleeding out of his eyes and nose and everything. And then one of the buddies, one of the SWAT team guys, and Jill Valentine show up disguised as Umbrella higher-ups or whatever, and they manage to get her in their car and leave. But then Lane Glenn says, "Just let them go," because it turns out he's able to monitor her, because she's connected to their satellite, and they can see through her eyes and all this stuff, and it leaves it on a sinister note that, oh no, what's Alice gonna do? Well, not a whole lot. But you'll have to see in the next Resident Evil film. But the Resident Evil films, like I said, are silly and kind of stupid, but it's one of my guilty pleasures. And again, Mila Jovovich, she carries the film, and that's about it. But it's a little bit of cut above your typical Saturday night Sci-Fi Channel movie. so there's that. The CGI was a little bit better than the first one, I guess, here and there. And you realize you need to keep things in shadows and stuff, but not by much. Not by much. It's still pretty bad. But again, some elements I suspect, because I don't know for sure, I never played the game, that does take more from the game narrative than the first film did. But maybe not. I don't know. If you know better, comment below, Anyway, there you go, Resident Evil Apocalypse. Yes, the apocalypse, which still didn't exactly seem to happen. It looked like everything was contained at the end, but then there's that next movie. Yeah. So far, 2 movies in, and only 1 city was really affected by this. So everything's really fine, right? Yeah, well, we'll see in the next chapter for Resident Evil. Yeah. All right, thank you for watching and listening. Say, while you're here, why not like and subscribe? And check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores that have plenty of goodies for you.